Hello, my name is Michael Lebowitz. I'm the director of the program on Transformative Practice in Human Development at Centro Internacional Miranda, or CIM, in Caracas, Venezuela. This month, July of 2007, we're instituting our first of hopefully annual programs, workshops in socialism and human development. And two of the first visitors here for this month are Daniel Schugurensky of the University of Toronto in Canada, and Hahnel of American University in Washington, D.C. in the United States. And I thought this would be a good opportunity then for us to explore some of the things that they're doing, the work that they're doing, and the relationship between their work and the question of human development, and also the question of socialism, and their general impressions of what's happening in Venezuela these days. So let me ask you first, Danielle, tell us about your work and your focus and your interest and how it relates to the question of human development.
Yes, Mike, thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I'm very happy to be here. And the work, one of the works that I'm doing now is on the relationship between human development and the question of democracy. And so my work is particularly on the relationship between participatory democracy and human development. To what extent democratic practices, transformative democratic practices, connect with human development. And some of the particular institutional arrangements that I have been looking at in terms of participatory democracy are the so-called participatory budgets that started in Porto Alegre in 1989 and have been spreading throughout Latin America and the world. Now there are probably about 400, 500 experiments of participatory budgeting all over the world. And I'm looking at how people transform themselves by engaging in these mechanisms. And participatory budget is basically a system for the resource allocations, usually at the municipal level, but could be in schools, could be anywhere. And it's about deliberation and decision making by ordinary citizens about resources that relate to the well-being of their community.
So how do you study the way in which people are transformed through their participation?
Yeah. Well, it is an interesting question, because usually we transform ourselves through our practice, but most often we are not aware of our own transformations, of our own learnings, because most of these processes are the result of informal learning, and usually result in tacit knowledge, which has been defined by Polanyi as all that I know but I cannot tell. So I have to develop some methodological strategies to elicit this learning and these changes that have been acquired by people, even in most cases without their own knowledge. And I can elaborate on that if you want.
No, I think that would be very useful. No.
Yeah. So when I started to interview people who participated in these processes, one of the questions I asked first questions about their life, about their participation, about their opinion about the process, etc., etc. And then I moved into the core part of the interview, which was about learning. And I asked an open-ended question: what have you learned from this experience? How this experience has changed you? And people were looking at me blank, staring at me blank, saying, I don't know. I cannot pinpoint any specific thing. I changed, but I don't know exactly how. So what I developed was a list of 10 indicators of change, and then from these indicators I was asking particularly, tell me about your change in these areas, and they were in the area of knowledge, skills, attitudes and values, and practices. And after doing this research in several settings, this original set of 10 indicators were increased to 56 indicators. So now there are 56 indicators of learning and change. And so people go through these indicators and they tell me stories. Once they identify there has been a change in a particular indicator, then I ask them, please tell me a story. And the amount of stories that people tell me and the quality and the richness of these stories are fascinating about how they have changed through the processes.
So
How they become more democratic, how they become more tolerant, how they increase their levels of political efficacy, etc., etc.
So where have you done this empirical research?
I have done this in Toronto, in Canada, in Porto Alegre, Brazil, in Montevideo, in Uruguay, and in Rosario, Argentina.
And are you getting the same kind of rankings of things that people think?
Not necessarily the same rankings, but generally speaking, the type of things that people mention as the most powerful learnings tend to be the same in the 4 areas, and the ones that are that indicate the lowest levels of change are usually the same. For example, the lowest level of change invariable in all the settings is trust in politicians. Trust in politicians has not increased much.